Okay, in this video, we're going to have a look at all the different pivot table options. So when you're in the Pivot Analyze tab over here, you'll see under the pivot table name, which by the way, we can change. So for example, we could call this the sales pivot table, just to give you an example, and press enter. So I've renamed that pivot table. So below this pivot table name, there is a button here for the options. When I click on it, it will open up the pivot table options dialog box, and in here there's a number of tabs, layout and format, totals and filters, display, printing, data, and alternative text. So what we're going to be doing in this video is going through the different options and how they affect your pivot table. So before we go through that, I just want to point out we're using a pivot table here that's got product category and the region within the rows, and then we're looking at the sales amount, and we've got years running across for the different columns. Now, besides actually clicking on this options button over here, to access the pivot table options, you can also right click anywhere in the table and you can select pivot table options there as well. All right, so the first thing that we've got here under the layout, it says merge and center cells with labels, right? So if I click on OK, just to show you, watch what happens to this northern region and to all of the cells. If I say OK, it basically then merges each cell and centers it. So you can see these are all centered now. You don't really notice a merge effect here because these are all actually single cells, but all of these cells here together in this area have been merged and centered. So that's what the merge and center does. It's purely a layout looking option. Going back into the options, let's turn that off. Now it says when in compact form, indent row labels by so many characters, right? Now currently our format here is not a compact format. So if we go into the design tab over here and in the report layout, we can change it to the compact form. Now it's in the compact form. Now let's look at what that option does. So if I now go into that, right, and you can see the spacing here for baking, how many, it's been indented, baking, beverages, all the different product categories. Let's assume I just increase that to 9 characters. And you see it's basically extended all of this. So it's just dealing with this spacing over here. I'm now going to just press Ctrl Z to undo that. So we're back to normal over there. Now going back into the pivot table options, we've already covered the layout as well as this compact form. We then have this option that says display fields in the report filter area. So these options deal with displaying fields in this area over here if you've got filters. And what it basically says is how many columns do you want and whether you want to go down, then over, or over, then down. So let's actually look what that means in practice. What I'm going to do first is actually go ahead and add a few filter fields. So let's just add some for the sake of illustration. Let's just add the product name, the customer name. I'm just adding a whole lot of them just so that we can actually see how this works in practice. And let's add the quarters. So now you can see that it's actually put 3 of them down. It's going customer name, product name, date. So customer name, product name, date. And then after 3 of them, it's putting the 4th one over here. So how you want to actually spread these filters across columns and the order in which you want them is what the setting has to do with. So if I go into it, it's now basically saying that you want, per column, we want 3. So you can see there's 3 in a column and then it went to the next column. If I did this and said I only want 2 in a column and I said okay, it would put 2 of them in a column and then go to the next column. And if there was a 5th one, it would go into a 3rd column over there because it's limiting to 2 per column. Furthermore, if we go into the setting again that deals with how many, whether we want to go down then over, if I change this to over then down, look at the order of which it will happen. So right now it's going customer name, product name. So it's customer name, product name, then date and quarters. So the order here is date and quarters, and so on. If I change this to over and then down, and I say okay, you can see it's basically running this way across. First customer name, then product name, then date, then quarters. So I hope that actually makes sense. And that's just really to do with the formatting of these filter fields over here. Then coming to these options for formatting, you can actually say that if there are error values in the pivot table, what do you actually want to show? Do you want to show something other than the normal errors itself? If so, if you tick this on and then you can put in what you want to show, you could type in the word error or anything, you could leave it blank. So if you just want to show something other than the actual error messages, you can actually change the default behavior, which is to actually show the error messages itself. And then if you've got empty cells, what do you want to show for empty cells? So currently it will just show a blank, an empty cell itself. If you wanted to put something else for empty cells, you could do that by putting it in over here. Then this option of auto-fitting column width and update basically means that if the column is too narrow, so for example, let's say this column is too narrow and you make a change, it will automatically increase the size so that it auto-fits. And this happens a lot if you sort of change the different fields that you've put into the different areas that may change the structure of this pivot table, in which case you'd want that auto-fit to work for you. So normally, typically, we'd recommend you keep that one on, auto-fitting column width on update, and then also preserving cell formatting on update. So if you update the values in the pivot table or making any other updates, if you've done any cell formatting on them, you'd want to keep that cell formatting on updating, so you would need to tick this on. So that covers the layout and format tab of the pivot table options.